Hey nerds, we are talking about The Mandalorian episode 305, The Pirate. We're going to review the episode and then get into a spoiler breakdown of the episode starting now. Welcome to Nerd Social. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Colin.
Hey, so the spoiler-free logline of this episode is the people of Nevarro need protection from rampant pirate attacks. This is written by Jon Favreau and it is directed by Peter Ramsey. So, Colin, what do you think of this episode?
I thought that this episode was pretty solid. I think that there was a lot of action scenes that moved the story along. I think that last week I had a lot of frustration that it was like a hamburger helper episode. I think if people don't know the reference, I think that George Lucas mentioned about that back in episode 1 of The Phantom Menace, like he had to put a lot of hamburger helper stuff. So last week was like that. This week definitely moved the story along. There was a lot more action as well as some stuff at toward the end of it that kind of brings it along. Whereas last week was, yes, it's a rescue mission. It was like stale. It was like stale at a point. This week, and then there was also some interesting thing was that there were a new character that appeared and that was great. And again, and then towards the end there was some mystery involved. So it was a solid episode overall where it had action. It moved the story along. It brought in a new mystery. It brought in a new character that we haven't seen before in live action. So in that regard, I say it's a pretty solid episode. It could have been a little bit better in terms of the action, but I think that overall, again, pretty solid.
Yeah, I like this episode a lot. So we're recording this later than we would usually. So I've seen other reviews and I think I have challenge with it based upon some of the other reviews that people pointed out. This episode is really great. I'm going to review it as a single episode when we get to the rating, but it's like the Mandalorian episode that showed up in the middle of like Boba Fett. The main character side of it in this episode, the Mandalorian plays a part. He's not the main character. He's one of the characters that is important to the plot. But now that we've gotten this episode, we get a sense of where this season is going. And this whole season isn't really going to be about him, it looks like. It's not really about his journey. It's just weird because the name of the show is the man. I feel like their issue is that they keep naming these shows, the title of the shows after a particular character. If they were more broad about the way that they title these shows, it wouldn't be confusing if they wanted to go off on a tangent and deal with other characters. Like if they called it Mandalore instead of the Mandalorian, then when someone goes off on a tangent, or if they want to go off on a tangent about talking about Mandalore and all the stuff that's happening on Mandalore, it would be fine. But yeah, so that's my only issue with the episode, where it fits in the overall story that you're telling about the Mandalorian. Besides that, it was a really good episode. Like I said, I'm not going to ding the episode because it doesn't make sense for the show, because as a standalone episode, it was a good episode. It had a lot of action at the end. You said last week was like a hamburger helper episode, and I think you're right, because it helps at the end of this episode. Like without last week, the end of this episode doesn't make sense, and also what happens in the middle of this episode doesn't make sense. When a decision is made, that decision doesn't get made without last week. But like last week, it was fine. But because of that setup episode, that utility episode, basically, it makes this episode better. So yeah, I like the action. I like some of the politics stuff. So it has, as we've been talking this season, the sprinkle of the Andor in there, which I appreciate. So yeah, I think it was a very solid episode. And if this is where the trajectory of the season is going, that's fine. At least I can follow where they're trying to do. If that's the trajectory, they're sidelighting the main character, which is another issue or separate issue. I guess it doesn't matter if the rest of the episodes are good.
Yeah.
But it will be a little confusing though to a casual fan, because this whole show has had lower ratings, and I think it's possibly because of all the other Star Wars shows that they had, which lost some people. I think Boba Fett probably lost some people to a certain extent. Obi-Wan lost some people. So this show isn't having the high ratings that they expect, and I think maybe focusing on characters that aren't the Mandalorian is going to further exacerbate that issue for like casual people. I'm enjoying the show now though. I understand where they're going. By the end of this episode, I understand where they're going. I don't really watch things based upon whether or not it's popular for other people. I mean, we make decisions about whether or not we're going to review things based on popularity, because it's a lot of work to make these videos, but like that's not why I watch things though.
I agree with you in a certain extent, Nathan, is that I think that the premise of it was that you had the Mandalorian himself. He's the lone gunman. It was kind of like the Westerns back in the day. And then you have this child that's like this mystery child that's with him, and he becomes space dad. So it's like in that way it was supposed to be him and his child is gallivanting across the galaxy, and I think that's where I think a lot of the frustration comes in with some of the fans, is that's supposed to be the story. It's about that. There should be like kung fu, where it's like he's going on adventures every week, and you should be like in kung fu, like Cain walks the earth, so he's supposed to be walking the galaxy in some way.
It's hard to talk about this without talking about what they're doing instead, what they're doing instead is
Right.
an interesting story. But like if you showed up for I forget what the name of the manga is, something in Cub, or like you basically have a lone wolf, like you said, character taking care of a little kid. It's basically the same thing as like The Last of Us. So it's like if The Last of Us decided to like not focus on those two characters and decided to do a whole plot about like Fedra or the Fireflies. These are references that you know if you didn't watch the show, but basically the government. If they decided to do a whole episode or decided to do the whole half of the season on the government and those institutions, I would be a little confused because I thought the show was about these two characters and it's not about these two characters anymore. Again, I can't say where they're going until we get into the breakdown, but they're veering off into something else that's about the larger thing that's happening around these two characters. Again, I'm interested in it, but it's probably going to lose some people. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So how would you rate the episode?
I was struggling with this a little bit because I was looking either at a 7 or an 8, but I think that because of the action that was involved, there's some really nice action. Not as spectacular as say I think it was episode 3 with the TIE interceptors. That was really great. But I think that this was probably just as good. Yeah, there were some scenes there.
There were some ground battles, and there was some air battle stuff. So like there was a lot of stuff.
So just because of that, and also the review of that live action character debut in live action, I would give it an 8, just 8 out of 10. Because if it wasn't for those two things, I probably would ding it in terms of 7, like give it a 7. But I'll leave it at an 8 for now.
Yeah, give it a road trip as well. I give it an 8. I think we both gave it last week a 7. I don't remember off the top of my head because it's fine. But I'd not really revisitable. Like, I could revisit this. This is an episode that I could revisit. It was cool in lots of different parts. So yeah. All right. So let's talk about the specifics. So before we get to spoilers, if you enjoyed the conversation, like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel out, makes the algorithm happy, helps other people find our content. Really appreciate it. All right, spoilers ahead. All right, we have screenshots from this episode, so you can jump over there. So this episode starts in Nevarro. Greef Karga is living it up as a high magistrate, starting to plant his city like it's a Sims, putting in a rail line and everything, and then pirates attack.
Yeah, and this was from, I think, back from episode, what was it? Was it episode 3? I think it was 3 when Mando was there and tried to shoo them off and stuff like that.
It was episode 1.
Okay.
This is how long it's been since we've been here. Like, it was episode 1 that he was in Nevarro, and that was the episode, that was like the weakest episode of the season. That was like, why do we do it here? Like, why are we looking for a robot? And then we see a very despondent, like, Bo-Katan. I don't know what was good. I understand it was like a whole lot of table setting, but that's not what you do with the first if you want to help people. Like, I feel like they probably lost a bunch of people at the beginning of the season because of that episode. But yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how long it's been. 4 episodes since I think it's been 4 episodes. Yeah, because that's why he was trying to get the droid and he wasn't able to get the droid.
Right.
So he tries to bluff this guy off, and he's like, yeah, you can't bluff me. And he's talking about his noble dress here and you're pampered. But they're going to take over the city here.
Yep.
And it's funny because he says to Mando in the first scene he didn't want to be part of the Republic, and the thing he does here is like ask the Republic for help.
Republic, yeah.
But
exactly.
I could see, but like the Republic is useless. Like, as we see later on in this episode, they get the message, but they don't respond. Well, it's not true. I guess they respond as they have a good man that's there. I forget what his name is.
He's going rogue, basically. He's basically going rogue. Yeah.
Basically going rogue to get other people to come and help. What is his name?
Carson something. Kiva.
Carson Teva. Captain Carson Teva. So this is after the teaser, this is the beginning of the episode where we are on the Delphi New Republic outpost. So that's where we are right now in this part of the episode. It looks like that beach planet that Andor was in last season.
Yes, it does.
So,
I was thinking more of Scarif, but from Rogue One, but oh well, pretty distinct.
Off of water, yeah. I guess like Scarif, yeah.
Yeah.
These are actually directors. That's a Rick. I forget what her name is. She's one of the directors as well.
Favreau?
I don't remember. But Favreau was there also. I think he's like right there. Anyway.
So this is Carson Teva right here.
This is getting the message from Greef Karga. And then we get the cameo that you're talking about. Zeb from Rebels shows up. They did a really good job on him. He looks really good here. He looks like he's there.
They've really incorporated a lot of the Clone Wars Rebels characters and apparently last year we were talking about Cad Bane being there. We're like, whoa, that's Cad Bane. And there's some detractors here and there. And then there was from Obi-Wan, one of the Inquisitors that was in Clone Wars, but I'm not 100% sure. But I think that overall they've done a pretty good job of incorporating these new characters. And like I said to you, Nate, that these are hopefully precursors to some of the Rebel characters coming into live action and hopefully in the Asoka series later on. But maybe toward the end of this run of the Mandalorian, you'll see some of the Rebels characters show up in live action. So it's good to see Zeb being one of the characters in there, actually.
Yeah. So Captain Teva decides to go to the Coruscant, and Jeb encourages him. He's in Coruscant here at I guess this is the Ford base, but they said that heard online that, or understood online that Coruscant is not necessarily the capital anymore. Maybe it's the capital right now, but they have the rotating capital. But anyway, Tim Meadows plays just like a paper pusher, like a captain. That's really that's how it works based on putting there.
Yeah. Very interesting that Favreau brings all these characters from comedy. These are not necessarily comedic roles that they're playing. Like you had last year, you had Bill Burr, you had like again Amy Sedaris. Like you had characters that are like known for their comedy, and also even Captain Teva here, he's in Jim's Convenience, known for comedy, but in the Tim Meadows now, and it's just interesting to see them in a different perspective, comedic but not really, semi-comedic role, I would say.
He's playing a silly person, like he's not playing. He's not trying to be funny, but he's just like a silly, like I said, a paper pusher colonel or whatever. Like, is he a colonel? He's a colonel. Colonel Tuttle. Yeah. So, he doesn't really want to hear this. And Eli Kane comes in to basically muddy the waters even more. It's so funny. Like, he plays this thing so many times. He plays it for him, and then he plays it for the Mandalorians later on. I wondered every single time if they were going to play it all the way through again, because we saw it being, like, recorded. I guess we didn't see the entire thing being recorded, all the entire thing in the bar. So he gets, like, the beginning of it, and then they cut it off. So I'm convinced even more, even though, like I said, the episode a couple episodes back, the one that I gave a 9 seemed to be a detour, the one with her. They obviously, I think, are setting her up as like a double agent. She wants them not to respond to Nevarro, maybe because Moff Gideon is probably doing something nefarious out there on the rim, and she wants them not to be where he's going to be. So she's obviously playing. It's so funny that like he's reprimanding him for like being like discriminatory towards her, but he's right here. She's like talking about some people need to see the light, and he says, you didn't see the light, you were captured.
He threw a lot of shade at her, but at the same time, well deserved, I would say. And it reminded me a lot that this scene with her reminded me of kind of like the manipulative type of the Emperor with the manipulation and stuff like that. And in a way, it's like twisting it in a way where Teva's really not convinced. He's just like, okay, you're twisting things. Whereas the Colonel's like, maybe that is the case. Maybe we should investigate. It's not of our jurisdiction.
Because he was flying in from an outpost, and she's there with him every day. So he's obviously developed some sort of relationship with her, because she's gotten herself placed in a very important place, right? Being a secretary to this guy who's doing the crew deployments for the entire sector, or maybe the entire galaxy, it looks like, because he's doing deployments out to the outer rim and to the mid rim. So everything is going through this office. Even though she's playing an assistant, she would be privy to like a lot of top secret information. So it's interesting. So he says apologies. We can't do more than and this is him saying again, all these events, it's not a coincidence. He said this in the second season as well to Cara Dune when we were supposed to have a spin-off show, but Corrado kind of screwed that up for herself. So he said again, he's very suspicious of what's happening here. It's so funny that when I saw this like small group, it was like, this is ridiculous. It's not the entire city. But when the Mandalorians show up, I guess you see some people who didn't flee. They're just content to stay in the city and be oppressed by the pirates and serve them things. But this him trying to still like get them be hopeful is interesting. Help is on the way, and then he's like, and I think they say like when. It's him being hopeful, basically. What does he say here? Someone says how soon. Help will arrive soon. One man says how soon. Who's coming to help? I sent a message to the New Republic. Help is on the way. That's like a hope and a prayer. We already saw that the New Republic isn't helping. So it's interesting how he finds the Mandalorians here. Apparently R5 worked with him in the Rebel Alliance, and he shows him the same message from Grief.
And this is also a very interesting thing, is that they built this up from the setup from season 2. Mandos has had some run-ins with Teva in the past, and then he let him go a couple of times that he escaped from him in that spider cave. I remember that was one of the setup episodes back in season 2. So it's like it's nice that these things are being connected again. You can see that there's a past relationship that they're trying to cultivate because of it. So it's nice that those little tidbit scenes that are there to see that development.
And he mentions that ordinarily they would have killed him because they're supposed to be hidden, but like he let him go one time, so he's letting him go. So did you think this was going to go the way that it went when Paz Vizsla stood up?
I think it definitely thought it was going to be a vote down because of his past. Again, being with the past experiences and encounters with Paz Vizsla as well, he's probably going to go against him. He's fought him a couple of times. He's probably going to go against him. But then, of course, he brings up the fact that he said that
we had the Helper episode.
Saved his son. So then I'm like, okay, then of course he's going to be on their side because both of them saved his son. So it was great in that you can see that they're bonding, and it's one of the parts where they've been adversaries, low-level adversaries, but now kind of bonding over the fact that just to prove that we are worthy of you, we've done some great things. So like you said in the beginning, the non-spoiler part, yeah, last episode was a setup, but at the same time, it has some importance because of this scene.
Yeah, they don't leave the convert without the last episode, because like he gets up and he speaks on their behalf, because he's not the only person who's like reluctant. A lot of them won't just like go and try to save these random people. Why? Yeah. So like he stands up and voices a lot of their concerns first, and then he pivots. So without his son being saved in the previous episode, he doesn't do that. So,
and also it's a callback from season 1 when they were on Nevarro being attacked.
Yeah, a lot of people died. A lot of people died.
Right, exactly. So he did call that back too.
He's pointing out a lot of the things that probably are in the heads of everyone else. And then and then, like I said, I don't think that anyone else would have actually been able to help him. I'm convinced, because they know that they weren't like the best of friends.
Right.
And yeah, not only is Pazwa not the best of friends with Din Djarin, but like he said, Kreef Karga, the person who they're going to save, killed a bunch of Mandalorians.
Yeah, it did. And yeah, that's exactly what it is. But I think all that kind of got washed away because of the fact that they saved his son. So
yeah,
and it's definitely weighs on his mind that they risked their lives for that.
Yeah, the battle plan, they do the battle plan in the ship, and we get to see these pirates taking over everything. Their plan here is to deploy them into the city, and also Din is going to be a decoy. So they have the snuff fighters go after him, and he pulls the Corsair and the snuff fighters away from the city. So a lot of this stuff is cool. This fly, he's really good at getting them to destroy themselves in the middle of the air. So I guess he's like the focus of the air battle, but he's not the focus of the ground assault. It's funny that the monkey is like pointing out the possible
like they were in there,
the ambush here.
Yeah.
So yeah, this firefight was pretty cool, because it like went back and forth. Like they had the upper hand, and then they got pinned down, and then Paz Vizsla comes down with this giant gun, and they get the upper hand again, and then they are pinned down again because they have the higher ground here.
Yeah.
And then we have the armorer come in after in a little bit.
Right. This reminded me a lot of Battlefront. It's like if you ever played the video game Battlefront, it's very much like Battlefront, where you have the tactical, you have to split, you have to work as a team to ambush people and stuff. So very Battlefront of them.
Yes, I think this is really well directed by Peter Ramsey.
Yeah.
It's this whole this insurgent like attack to take the city and back. It's very cool. And then the inhabitants come in and pin them in. So who is this on the ship?
Was that? No, it's not Bo-Katan, is it? No, I don't remember. I don't remember who it was.
Probably someone for Rocket Pack. So yeah, he goes and tries to mow these people down, and I think that's Bo-Katan that actually takes the ship down, right? Is that her ship?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, that's her ship. She like Din says we've got to take him down, and maybe they shoot at him at two. So this is Bo-Katan's point of view, but on the other side of the explosion, you can see Din's ship like right here. So they shoot at the Corsair from both angles.
It's like one of the engines. I remember they said that they had to shoot at one of the engines. Knock it down.
Yeah, because throughout the firefight earlier, they were knocking engines down one after another. So they save the day, and they get their land, so they don't have to be a convert anymore. So the Mandalorian people are changing. So this is what I was talking about. Like the story is evolving. How is the Mandalorian people? How are they going to be redeemed? How are they going to get their land back? And I'm interested in that story, but it's not Lone Wolf and like Cub. That was the name of the manga. It's not a Lone Wolf and Cub story anymore. It's about like building a society and whatever.
Right.
Which is fine, but like you can see the logo even at the bottom of our screen right here. There's a lone wolf and a cub. That's what's in the logo. That's what's in the logo of the show. So it's not so.
The lone wolf and the cub finds their family. Maybe it means they need to be a lone wolf again. That he and then the cub needs to be by themselves again. Towards the end, it was like ominous. So that's like foreshadowing.
Yeah. I think that's foreshadowing.
That makes the setup where they might have to go back to the lone wolf and cub storyline.
But this sect is gonna get some land on Nevarro, and hopefully, like, I think the armor starts to believe that this is gonna be the rebuilding of their society. Hopefully, so she tells her that she can take off her helmet, and she's going to be the person who is in between worlds, in between the tribes. So this is the part again that I was talking about, where the focus here is going to be about Bo-Katan's ascendancy, which I don't think it makes sense that he becomes the leader of the entire. So that's fine.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So even though he has a Darksaber, he still possesses that.
Yeah, so that's fine. But again, the show doesn't have a generic name like Mandalore, or compare it to another show that could be similar to it, Game of Thrones. It doesn't have a generic name about like what's going on in the area. It has a name that is related to a specific character, maybe two. I don't know. Like I said, I'm interested in the story, but I understand it losing people. And I like Bo-Katan, and I like Hedit Shakov, but I'm trying to look at it objectively, voicing the fact that I like the character from Clone Wars, and I like this actress, because some people don't even know who this actress is, and a lot of people haven't seen Clone Wars. So like as a casual, this is a random person that they're focusing on now.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's the trouble with bringing in the characters from the beginning of the series, because there are a lot of, even the Star Wars fans, they haven't seen the animated stuff, so they don't know any of these characters. So when Zeb shows up, like, part of me was saying, that's Zeb? That has to be Zeb. Like, it looks like him, but I can't really be convinced. So that's why I had to ask you to see, is that really? So I think that there's definitely, like, you're going into the more of the lore and mythology of the animated stuff. And because this is from Dave Filoni, so it's like all this stuff is from his kind of like vision and stuff like that from the animated stuff. And because of that, people are like, I don't get it. If you're just interested in the movies, you don't get to see any of the live action stuff. You don't any of the stuff. You don't know who Asoka is actually. You have no idea.
You don't know what Mandalorians are either. You don't know that they're their own culture and their thousands of years. Like, you've seen Boba Fett and you've seen Jango Fett. If you've seen all the movies, that's basically who you've seen. So exactly. It's, I don't know. I like it, but they're probably going to lose a bunch of people because it's turning, like, I feel like the Star Wars stuff is more like mass appeal stuff and not as niche as Star Trek, and it's turning into Star Trek, which means it's going to be more interesting to me. But it's going to be less interesting to other people. It's going to be much more nerdy. It's going to be much more nerdy.
So it's a lot of this is just a double-edged sword. It's like, do you want to get deeper in the rabbit hole of the Star Wars mythology, or do you want to just be on surface level, just watching the movies and watching live action? But then you're going to miss a lot of stuff watching live action. And then what Disney's trying to do is say, hey, we got a lot of content here on Disney Plus that you can watch, that you can catch up on. That's a brilliant strategy. But some people are going to be like, no, I don't want any of that stuff. I just want the Lone Wolf and Cub story. Like, I like that story. It's a double-edged sword. Either way, you're going to lose fans, like you said.
It's an investment. Nerddom is an investment generally. And I think Marvel is having a similar issue. Like, the people who make this stuff love the comics, but reading comics is an investment of time and, like, keeping track of lore and everything. And they're making the Marvel universe more and more like comics, it's going to lose more people because more people, even the people who, like, getting people on board of paying attention to like 20 movies was a big lift. Adding all these television shows as well, that's why they're starting to lose people. Unfortunately, I'm going to watch it because it's becoming more and more like my childhood. All the interconnected books. I think they're having the same issue in the Marvel universe. Anyway, so this is the end of the episode after the armorer says that the Bo-Katan can bring the tribes together. So he finds the Moff Gideon's transport, and there's a bunch of dead people, and at the end, there's apparently some Beskar in the bulkhead here. I don't know, would you think that some Mandalorians are working with Moff Gideon, or some Mandalorians took him to kill him? What do you think that this means?
I think I initially thought that it was some sect of Mandalore that we wanted to kill him because of what he did, because he did take the Darksaber.
No, he also bombed. He was the one in charge of bombing Mythic Moff, who actually told him to bomb Mandalore. So that's during the Purge. So he's a good reason for them to want him dead.
So I would assume that it's just a sect of Mandalorians that want him dead and that probably want to use their own type of justice, because I could see why they're pissed off that the New Republic, who's this incompetent government from Coruscant that's going to have to deal with this type of accountability, when they're the ones that suffer the most. I would assume that it's some type of a sect.
So you don't really even need a sect. You just need a 10 Mandalorians who are well trained to take out a transport like that, 5 to 10.
Right. Yeah, I was expecting that, or it could have been. I think that it was suggesting a line that it could be a plant where it probably were loyalists of Moff Gideon.
He's trying to frame the Mandalorians.
Exactly. And that and somehow, some way, maybe I'm speculating some more, is that they're going to try to frame Din Djarin and Grogu. So that's why they're going to become loners again, because they're the ones that are going to get framed. I remember that. I've been watching some Star Trek lately, TNG. Remember the episodes in which Worf was like dishonored? Because I think it's going to be like that, where he's going to be dishonored. Like, he's going to have to be like casted away from the Mandalorians in some way. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, they already did that story beat at the beginning of the season, though. That he was already an apostate and he had to go and he was dishonored. If they do that, they're running out of ideas. He did that
if you want to stick true to the title, you're going to be the loner. You're going to be the one that's going to be alone. You're going to be outcasted in some ways.
You can also just end the show. They don't have to. They have lots of Star Wars content. They don't have to continue on forever just because, like, them wandering for a while and then finding a home is a fine resolution for the show. If they try to stretch it out and also don't focus on them too, then it's going to be a problem. But they can also just end the show. The resolution is that they found a home, and then they can show up later on in other things that aren't named the Mandalorian, so it's not confusing. So
I get it.
Anyway, we talked about 10 minutes longer. Probably should have. Any other thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I think I'm good. I think that we're getting more than halfway through now. I think they were 8 episodes. So
three episodes. 3 episodes of Mando left. 3 episodes of Star Trek Picard left.
Yeah, so we're getting there. So it's gonna be fun. I think it's gonna be fun to see how this season's gonna end, as well as some of our other sci-fi stuff with Star Trek Picard. So it'll be interesting. Very interesting.
So that is what we think, but we want to hear what you guys think. Please comment down below, like, share, and subscribe, and check out our last review, or check out one of our reviews of Picard. All right, bye guys. Thanks. See you next week.